Abu Dhabi time, and that's my background right now. This is a picture that I took from the Oasis in Al Ain, but I ended up planning a vacation and it worked out perfectly because I'm currently in Jamaica and it's 6:05 p.m. Where I'm at now. So this is much better than 2 a.m. So yes, as Mahiba said, I'll actually start my screen share really quick. Give me one quick second to start my presentation. All right, there we go. So I'll go right into it. So who am I? I'm Garvin Reid. I am from the Bronx in New York City. First generation American, born to Jamaican parents, which is part of the reason why I'm in Jamaica right now. I'm here, one, to show my wife around the island for her, because it's her first time, but also because my aunt is having a retirement party. So I'm here for that. It was a long journey to get here from Abu Dhabi, but I'll probably get into that a little bit later. I'm a first generation college graduate. My undergraduate is America's oldest HBCU, Cheney University, founded in 1837. If there's any Lincoln or Wilberforce or any other grads in the chat box, I'll probably hear about that soon. And for my master's, I went on to New York University, where I earned a master's in higher education and student affairs. Also worth noting that my undergrad, my major was business management. And I've been an expat, which is like pretty much living abroad for, man, almost 5.5, well, no, more than 5.5 years now. I remember leaving the Bronx February, Valentine's Day, February 14, 2017. So yeah, I'm close to 6 years now living abroad. I've changed careers 3 times. So I think my first job out of college, I was a marketing intern at Black Enterprise magazine, or Black Enterprise, because I worked on both the magazine side as well as the TV side. But because I graduated the class of 2008, I graduated probably like one of the worst times ever to graduate. So the recession happened and a possible internship to full-time job then turned into me being laid off. So that was marketing. And then I was doing like data entry at the Avon Foundation and lots of like odd jobs. Then I landed my first full-time job as an insurance underwriter at Chubb Insurance Company in White House Station, New Jersey, which was actually part of the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, which I highly recommend everyone be a part of if you're, well, yeah, I think even if your school is not a public HBCU, you can still join their talent pool, because I actually got the phone call or the email to get that job with Chubb through the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. And it was a great job, but it just wasn't for me. And this actually leads into me being abroad now, is because when I was a insurance underwriter at Chubb Insurance Company, one of my friends, she was doing Fulbright, which is one of the things that I'm going to talk about today. And she had like a blog, and she's in like Indonesia, and like every weekend she's like posting these like great pictures, and I'm seeing like flowers and all this greenery and colors, and I'm like, dang, I'm in this great cubicle in New Jersey. And I was like, nah, this definitely cannot be it. This can't be it at all. So then I had my third career change, and I went from insurance into education. And this happened, I was able to make this transition by volunteering a lot, where I volunteered to work college fairs on behalf of Cheney. So I worked with admissions to work at college fairs in mostly in New York City, mostly on weekends and things that they didn't have the admissions rep to go to. So I did that. And then from volunteering so much, I was able to network and work my way into higher education, got my first job in admissions, actually, at a for-profit college. And then I remember my manager saying, hey, everyone here has a master's, you should get a master's. And I was like, okay, so there was 2 schools I wanted to go to. One was either Columbia Teachers College, which had like an education administration degree, it was cool. But then NYU had a higher education and student affairs degree, but theirs was focused on global. And I was like, ooh, global, I like that. And it had a study abroad option, which I didn't get to do study abroad in undergrad. So I was like, oh, I get to do it in grad. So that's why I chose NYU. And then I also knew that what if I end up working for NYU? I knew that NYU had locations in Abu Dhabi and Shanghai. And I was like, huh. So I began thinking about this from very, early in my career or even in my choice of grad school. So all of this will lead into a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today. What else I have? So yeah, so over 7 years of career development experience, and that's like formal, like official. But I mean, honestly, I've been doing this a lot for friends, probably since my junior year of undergrad. Like I said, currently living in Abu Dhabi. I met my wife in Abu Dhabi. We met on Tinder. She's from Florida, and she was actually living in Abu Dhabi too. Via her career path brought her out there too, which we're going to talk about that a little bit more too. And I was actually counting this out when I was building this slide. And yeah, so far I think I visited 21 countries. And I think that's not counting the one that I just visited on the way here, which I had a layover in Germany. So far, that is me. So what is a global career? Let's just start there. And then I'll also give everyone like a heads up. So I'm also a part-time photographer on the side. So when I was building this PowerPoint, I was like, let me like try to get some like stock photos and then I was like, wait, I'm a photographer. I have photos. So all the pictures in here will be pictures from my travels, pretty much the majority of them. And then also, if you have questions at any point, definitely, type in the chat box. I wanted this to be as much of an active conversation as possible. We don't really have to wait until the end. So I chose this picture as my first picture. One, it has three of my friends. I actually know these people, and they all have global careers, and their global careers are very different, like how they ended up being abroad. And let's see. Okay, so first off, I want to go into like what is a global career, right? So there is no true definition per se, but it's pretty much up to you. Like if you want to live and work abroad, there's many ways of doing that, right? So that's what we're gonna talk about today. And I chose this picture because the folks in here chose 3 totally different paths. So the first guy, so that's my friend Terrence. He works in higher education. And he actually joined, he was working at NYU Abu Dhabi before I even got there. Now he's back in the States, but he was working at NYU Abu Dhabi, and that was his first role abroad. In the middle, that's my other friend, Alvina. She's been abroad multiple times. So she's from Zimbabwe, she's worked in South Africa, and then she's worked in Dubai and now Abu Dhabi. And my friend Patricia, she is a coffee consultant, which I've never even knew that was like actual thing. So yeah, so both Terrence and Alvina now work at NYU Abu Dhabi, but Patty, she is a coffee consultant, and literally her clients fly her all over the world to help them set up boutique specialty coffee shops. Crazy career. She's from Brooklyn. Like it's yeah, such an interesting background. So yeah. There is honestly no true cookie cutter route to have a global career, but I am going to talk about some of the maybe like the tried and tested routes, as well as some of the routes that I personally know of, but trust and believe there's even more beyond whatever I can tell you today. So why a global career? So for me personally, the reason why I wanted to go abroad, the number one reason was I wanted to be competitive, right? So working in career services, I know that everything is all about how I stand out against everyone else who's interviewing and competing for the same job, right? You're gonna find multiple people who went to HBCUs. You're gonna find multiple people who have great GPAs, multiple people who pledge so like whatever fraternity fraternity or sorority they pledge, multiple people who have interned at X companies, which is great in your field, but when it comes time to now say, oh, but this person has also worked and lived abroad, that begins to separate you from a lot of people, right? So the fact that I can now say that I've worked for NYU, both in New York, which is where I began working at NYU, but also in Abu Dhabi, where I work with students where a population, I want to say about 15% or less were American. So I have experience working with a very diverse culture set. That makes me more competitive when I go back to the States, if I choose to stay in higher education, which, I'm not too sure about that. But now if I'm looking at, let's say, talent acquisition or HR or anything else, I'm also now a whole lot more competitive than everyone else because I have that global career and global skills mindset, right? Cultural competency. So I put an asterisk next to this one because yes, having a global career will most definitely increase your cultural competency. But one thing I've definitely learned from living abroad for almost 6 years now is that you can also move abroad and stay in your same American circles, right? Perfect example. I went to go visit one of my friends who he lives in India, and we both grew up in the Bronx. He's Nigerian, his wife is Jamaican American also, and they his wife landed, or his wife works for a large company, and the company said, hey, can you go to India to help us set up this office for the next 3 years? She was like, all right, great, sure, I'm gonna go. So they went over there, and I've gone to India probably 3 times prior to this, mostly on vacation and just seeing more of the country. I went to go visit them, and they're living in a very, very expat bubble. Like staying with them was I did not feel like I was in India. Like you don't hear honking horns, you don't hear you are literally living on a compound. Similar example I went to go visit a fraternity brother who lives in Saudi, which was honestly like a 40-minute flight from the UAE. And in Saudi, like the living situations is very different. So if you want to live a more liberal life, and what this means is that, like, for instance, as a woman, if you want to go to the gym from your apartment to your gym in your building, and not have to cover, you should live on the compound. And if you live on the compound, it's very much like you're living in, think about Florida. You're living in like a gated community in Florida. So that's why I put the asterisk next to it, because for what it's worth, if most of the people here are from the US and Americans, if you end up going abroad, you will see that it's very easy to end up just being in a clique full of Americans, which is fine. But oftentimes in doing that, you don't get the big jump in cultural competency that you may think you'll get just by being abroad. You can very much move from the US to, let's say, the UAE and stick around Americans. And I mean, I'm guilty of this part, never learn a lick of Arabic. I do know a little something. Like if I watch movies and I'm walking in certain neighborhoods in the US, I can pick it up and be like, oh snap, like I actually know that now. But yeah, like it's that part is definitely worth noting. Financial independence. This is a major piece. This is honestly the main reason why I chose to move abroad. But I put an asterisk next to it because not every country has a similar setup to what, I'll be honest with you, what the UAE and the Gulf states have. So the Gulf being Oman, the UAE, which is United Arab Emirates, which is where, so everyone knows it as like Dubai, but Dubai is just one emirate of the 7 emirates, right? So Oman, the UAE, Saudi, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and I feel like I'm forgetting one, but those 6 countries, actually, yeah, those are the 6 countries. So most times, if you get an opportunity to work in any of these 6 countries, one is going to come with a tax-free salary, meaning that you see your full paycheck. You get, there's no income tax in these countries as of right now, knock on wood. For since the beginning of the countries, there's been no income tax here. You also, most of the roles also come with home leave travel. What that means is that they also give you 1 free plane ticket home, 1 free round trip plane ticket home. And now where it kind of like begins to get a little bit more lesser is where you do have companies that will pay for your housing, so you're not paying rent. And you do have companies that will actually take it a step further and they'll give you a housing allowance. So some companies will say, hey, go find apartments, wherever you find, great, send us the bill and we'll cover it. Some companies will also say, hey, here's a pot of money, go figure it out. And whatever you don't use, sure, have at it, keep it, right? And yes, like these are the kind of benefits that you'll see within the Gulf countries. But then also, if you're working for like a Fortune 500 company and you're doing a similar setup to like what my friend's wife did, where they say, hey, go set up this office for 3 years or something like that, or hey, who wants to go to whatever, I don't know, like Thailand or Nigeria or like wherever to just do like work on this project. It's in your best interest to volunteer for that, because most times what that means is that you'll go out there, they'll pay for everything. You will not have any cost. The only downside is that you're there for a fixed time. So you're there for, let's say, 3 years or 5 years or whatever. And then when they say, hey, it's time to come back, you do have to go back. But we'll get more into like, working for a corporate company versus like other routes to go. So yeah, financial independence is a major reason why I chose to go. And like I said, the Gulf countries, they do pay well. Part of the reason why is because you are literally in the middle of the deserts. Like right now, it is hot in Jamaica, but it's nothing compared to what I just left in Abu Dhabi. For example, the drive from Abu Dhabi to Dubai to get to the airport was about an hour and a half. 40 minutes of that hour and a half drive, my AC was struggling because it was 120 degrees outside. And it was what, I think 10 a.m. So it was hot. It was really, really, really hot. So that's part of the reason why they have those benefits. Plus, I mean, of course, they have the oil money as well. Checking the Q&A a little bit. Okay, got it. Yes, I will definitely touch on that for sure. So the question was about the age factor. So in the Gulf countries, and I can only speak to this in terms of the age factor, I believe, it's either 55 or 60 is like their limit. And I do believe that if you're not a Emirati, then they kind of do force retire you. So there is an age factor in the Gulf countries. I can't speak to it in other countries. Yeah, I cannot speak to it in other countries, but if you're working for an American company in the Gulf region or in any other region, they can't force you to retire. Because I definitely know that I have some coworkers who are older than that, and they're just living a grand life. So yeah, that's not the case with every company. But you're one of the best routes to go, and I'm going to get into this for sure, is to work for an American company abroad, because that's where you'll definitely see a lot of these benefits. Or not even an American company, a multinational companies, because they have kind of like global HR standards that more often than not supersede the local standards. And like I can give you the example also for the Gulf countries, is that they're in free zones. And what the free zone means is that your physical location is in an area where the laws are different. So you're able to have different you're able to do different things than what everyone else does. And for the tax, for the cap on the income tax, there's no salary cap on that, but you do have to, or it's in your best interest to report your income to the U.S. government, because you don't want Uncle Sam to find out after the fact and then you have to pay all this money. Don't do that. If there's anything that you gather from this, is that if you do land a great job in the Gulf or anywhere else that doesn't have income tax, please report your income, because you don't want to end up in jail. Yeah. And then, so one thing people don't often tell you about this though, is that as an American living abroad, yes, you still have to pay taxes, but if you are abroad for more than, I think it's, as long as you don't spend, I think it's up to 60 days in the US, your first 110, I want to say, and they increase every year. I think it's either 110 or $115,000 of income is not taxed by the US government. And they only begin to see your income as anything after the 115. So if you make $130,000 in the US government's eyes, you only make $15,000, and they tax you accordingly, which is still great. It's still a great benefit. Just give me 1 second, just read about this. Okay. All right, cool. So, and then ability to see the world. Once again, I'm going by my experience, because I'm in the Gulf, and I'm realizing now, like, it's called the Middle East for, well, I mean, that's like colonial reasons, but we will not touch on that part too much, but you really are in the actual middle of the world. So for me, to get to most places is about a 7 or 8 hour flight or less. I'm able to see the world a whole lot easier than when I was in the States. I love that part about it. And I mean, I have friends who live in like Denmark or other parts of Europe, like Spain, or in Southeast Asia, in Hong Kong, and Thailand and India, and they all say the same thing. Like they're able to see the world a whole lot more easier now that they're abroad, rather than when they're in the States, because like flights just happen to be, well, I mean, I guess they are cheaper because you're flying a lot less, right? So a 4-hour flight will always cost you less than an 8 or 13-hour flight. So yeah, that's definitely one of the reasons why I have a global, or why I chose to have a global career. Personal growth. So this one touches a little bit like very close to home for me. My first time away from what I call my bubble was going to Cheney. So I grew up in the Bronx, and my first job was Golden Crust. Big up to all the Jamaicans. And I lived in the Northeast Bronx, which, if anyone knows this area, is heavily Jamaican, right? So I always said that I have at least 5 kitchens within a 5-mile radius. So I have like plenty of aunts, uncles, everyone that I can like go to if I need anything. And I chose to go away to Cheney because I was like, I wanted the HBCU experience, but I didn't want to go down to the South because I couldn't wrap my head around hopping on an airplane to go home for Thanksgiving and things like that. And meanwhile, now I live 3,000 or 6,000 miles on the other side of the world. But hey, so with that being said, yeah, so now I live literally on the other side of the world where I can't, make decisions where I can say, well, if all else fails, I can just go to mom's house, which is like 5-minute walk away, or to anyone else. Like now it's like you're very far from home. Everything relies upon you. And I can definitely say that I witnessed a whole lot of personal growth that I would not have gotten had I stayed in the US. And it just your mindset changes a whole lot, because I can speak to just being a typical New Yorker where, it's all about, just, dressing up and going out and all of that stuff. Whereas now, truth be told, to me, a perfect weekend would be, my wife, my dog, a couple of friends. We, drive out to the desert. We camp out there with some firewood. Amazing time. But as a New Yorker, I'm like, camping? What? You tripping? We going to rooftops. We going to the brunches and all that stuff. We definitely have that in the UAE too. But just the mindset changes a whole lot. So these were mostly my reasons for a global career. But to be honest with you, I can definitely speak to the competitive parts, the cultural competency, and the financial independence. Those 3, like the majority of my friends who I've spoken to, that was their reason also for a global career. So whenever you're thinking about that, think about also, what is your why? Why are you why do you want to have a global career? All right. So charting your path. So like, how do you do this, right? So the first thing to think about is like, what do you want to do, right? And this starts even from like your college major part, right? What is your college major? And now that you are picking your college major, if you're currently in school, how does that major relate to your actual plan of action? Global career paths, right? So what are those career paths that you can now attach to that major that can now go abroad? Where do you want to go? So that's definitely something to think about when you think about your global career, because different industries are different in different areas, right? So let's say if you want to get into like oil and gas, once again, the Middle East is a great place for that. Oil and gas, if you want to go into, well, I mean, yeah, there's like lots of places that have oil and definitely gas. So, but different areas are hotspots for different things, right? So like financial roles, that's going to be, London, Singapore, possibly the UAE. Fashion, that might, lead to parts of like Europe. Development, that can be in most of the parts like the global South. So like, think about it that way also. What is the best path to get there? So start thinking about different things like government sponsored programs, study abroad, being a digital nomad, or also a local hire. So I'll definitely get into all of these things going forward. All right, I'm just going to check into the chat real quick. Yes, safety. Yes. So that's one that I actually take a stop right now to talk about, because I don't have a slide on that. But actually, yes, I do have something that does talk about it, which is part of the doing your research part, which is if you can go there beforehand, that's always best. But I also know that costs might prohibit you from doing so. But so there are other ways that you can find that out, and we're gonna get to that. All right, so first we're gonna start with college majors, right? So some college majors are more portable than others. What I mean by portable, portable meaning that like you can take that major and pretty much attach it to a career that can lead you anywhere. And these are some of those majors. So finance, right? Majoring in finance, you like the world works on money. So that's going to be that, right? So finance, what I learned from insurance also, insurance is also global. If you think about some of the largest insurance companies like Aon and or insurance brokers like Aon, Marsh, they're literally everywhere. Languages, that's like the go-to. If you major in or if you have like one of your majors, or your major is, let's say, Italian, you can pretty much go to Italy. Like that's going to be okay. French, you can go to France. You can go to most of the Francophone countries in Africa. Spanish, you can go to, of course, Spain, Central America, South America. I believe there's only one country in Africa. It is Equatorial Guinea that speaks Spanish. But yeah, like if you major in a language, you can go to pretty much any country that has that language, and or a country that has a large population that speaks that language. Think about that also. International relations goes without saying. Of course, you get a job with the UN, you get a job with the UNHCR, you get a job with a lot of like development organizations that have locations pretty much all over the world. STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. These jobs are hot job or majors that can attach to careers that are pretty much hot jobs right now, that can pretty much take you all over the world. Another thing that I've learned recently through working at NYU Abu Dhabi is that if you not really majoring in research, but like if your career path is going to lead into research, you can literally have schools pay you to fly to their school in other countries and work there. Right. So like one of the most popular research universities in South Africa is called, I forget the full name, but the shorthand for it is called WITS. And at WITS, you can, yeah, like WITS has research assistants and researchers who are from all over the world. And it's part of the grants of the faculty person or whoever, I forgot what they're called, but like the main person. And they get people from all over the world, and they come there to do research. So yes, your day job will be doing research, but when you're not doing research, you're in Joburg. And yeah, there's schools literally all over the world. So whatever you want to like major in, or if you want to go into like having an advanced degree, whether it be a master's, PhD, or even go even further to like a postdoc, yeah, you can pretty much travel the world on the next person's dime. This one is, I think personally, is lesser known. I did not know this until far beyond college, but education. Education can bring you abroad. Most of my friends, and I will tell you this, like the majority, well, the majority of the teachers in the UAE, which I mean, the majority of most people in the UAE are non-Emiratis because they're the lowest or they have a small population, but the majority of the teachers in the UAE are either from the US. I think Ireland has a good number, and well, the greater like UK. So education, you can definitely go abroad with a degree in education. The most I would say is that you'll have to get some teaching experience in the States first. And honestly, that goes for most of these majors, which you'll then attach to careers. Experience in the States, maybe about like 2 to 5 years, and then being able to go will definitely get you there for sure. But next bullet, this does not mean that if your major is not here, it's not portable. My wife majored in psychology and she was abroad before I was there. So yeah, you can major, like even if your major was not listed here, I can guarantee you that through doing a LinkedIn search, you can find a job abroad in your major or in your career choice that you'll find through that major. So global career paths. So like I said, now we're beginning to like attach the majors to jobs. So banking, consulting, and finance, that goes without saying, finance degree. So finance, economics, accounting, business administration, that will pretty much go into that area. Languages, right? You can be a translator. You can be I believe it is TESL, but I know it's like it has different things in different countries, but teaching English as a second language. So people's first language will be whatever it is, but their second language can now be English. And there's a big market for that globally. So much so that so my friend is not doing this per se, but he is a American teacher. He's from Chicago, actually. He's from Chicago, used to work in the UAE, and now he just landed a job in Kazakhstan. And to the unknowing, you like, Kazakhstan, like what? Who lives out there, right? But through me now living in the UAE and knowing like other countries that have lots of oil wealth, Kazakhstan is one of those countries. So he's getting paid more than he was getting paid to teach in Abu Dhabi in Kazakhstan, and they're covering everything. So something else to consider and think about, because I mean, you know, the brother has loans, and I do know that Biden just forgave $10,000 worth of loans, but there's more to be considered. So yeah, like I said, back in just going back to the financial freedom part and everything. And you'll see this too when you begin looking for your global career paths. The more, I wouldn't say obscure, but the less popular the country, the higher the salaries oftentimes. So like your Kazakhstans, your Uzbekistan, China, for what it's worth, was paying very well prior to the pandemic. And now that the pandemic has hit, they haven't really gotten it back together too much. So yeah, but yeah, think about that, right? While yes, there are those sexy countries to go to, like, oh, Bali and, you know, the UAE and other things, but like sometimes if you go to other countries that are not as well known, but they either put a big priority on that industry, then you'll definitely get that salary that's like, wow, okay, now we're talking. So international relations, foreign service. We're going to talk a bit about this part too, but foreign service, this is pretty much working for the embassies. Embassies are literally all over the world. So yeah, that's worth looking at. Research assistant, we talked about that already. University administrator, that's what I'm doing. Technology careers. So when you're majoring in STEM, like tech is literally all over the world. If you look at the offices that Amazon has or Facebook has, you'll definitely find Singapore, you'll find Dubai, you'll find Glasgow, Ireland. Like they're literally all over the world. So tech careers. Engineering is also like another sleeper area that I feel that people just use it and stay in the US, which is fine. But if you want to really maximize your earning potential, go abroad with your engineering career at least once. You'll definitely find that it's just like, wow, it increases your salary to a whole other level. It also increases your experience to a whole other level too. So that when you like I said earlier, when you now go back to the States and you're competing for that bigger job, the fact that you had already gone to, or the fact that you could say you worked on this great big project in a whole other country makes a big difference. Healthcare, another thing to consider too, when you're looking at other countries in the healthcare fields. Not every country values healthcare workers as much as the US does, but some countries value them more than the US does too. If you have like a friend, cousin, anyone who's like a traveling nurse, they can definitely tell you that that is also a lucrative career and also a great way to get abroad as well. Let me just check the chat really quick. Yes, the JET program, that's literally in my next slide, or in one of the upcoming slide. The JET program, I will say this, the pay isn't the greatest, but the experience is phenomenal. I mean, it's Japan. Like I've never heard anyone complain about being in that country. Great experience, great short term, or great, yeah. I think it's about 1 or 2 years, and you can like renew. But great option, the JET program. All right, so what are some of the countries that y'all are all thinking about? I want to just take some time and just check in on the chat. So if you can just type in, what are the countries that you would like to live in? While I take a short water break. Germany. So I just flew in from Germany. I'll actually touch on this now. So I was able to, because I wanted to avoid the US to get to Jamaica because they're canceling flights like crazy and then losing luggage like crazy. I don't got time for that. And I also wanted to avoid the UK because the same thing with London Heathrow has just been going through it. I was able to find a flight from Frankfurt that has a 2-hour layover in Havana and then goes on to Montego Bay, which is like, wow. So it was my first time in Germany was a couple of days ago. And I was in Munich and Frankfurt. Frankfurt reminded me a bit of New York City. They have a little area that reminds me very much of, it was giving a lot of 90s Times Square vibes, where I'm just leave it at that. If you know, you know. Ghana is a dope country also. I know folks who've gone there as expats, but I know people who have had a bit of a tough time because the cost of living is pretty high in Ghana, because the secret's out and the salaries have not been matching up as well. So consider that too. England, always a good time there as well. Expensive, depending on where you are. Jamaica, of course. I'm here now, and I've always been looking around like, man, how can I make this like a reality to just live here full time? I do feel like Jamaica, you may have to go the entrepreneur route more so than the expat route of like actually like working for like a company out here. Of course, there's always options, but yeah, some countries I do feel like you may have to be more of an entrepreneur than working for a company there. Madrid, beautiful city, going there also. Lots of opportunities out there in a lot of those fields that I mentioned earlier. Egypt, haven't gone there yet. I've heard iffy things about it, but haven't gone there. It is on my list. Switzerland, great place, very expensive. Japan, beautiful. Costa Rica, beautiful. France, I've been, meh, meh. I have someone who I met in Abu Dhabi who's actually there now, went to grad school in France, which I'll touch on too, and just stayed and is now finding their way. Frankfurt, Seoul, South Korea, Cape Town. I've heard Cape Town's beautiful. South Korea, haven't gone there yet. DR, Colombia, Philippines, Thailand. Yes. So Thailand, my tip for Thailand is pretty much look at all the companies that you know of in the US that are in your field and see if they have an office in Thailand. I have a friend who works for Agoda, which is like the travel company. So it's like booking.com and Expedia. And she was working in the New York office for, I want to say 2 or 3 years. And then she got the opportunity to move to Thailand and lived in Bangkok for, I think, 3 years, still working for Agoda, and lived her best life. Thailand is amazing. Hey, Haiti. So my wife is from Haiti. So yeah, dope. Cool. All right. So thank y'all for just doing that quick check-in with me. I definitely appreciate that. So things to consider where you want to go. And I've mentioned this a little bit earlier, as we're just talking about some countries. Also, this photo is from my time in Ethiopia. So this was on the drive from Addis to Shashamani. So things to consider: career prospects, right? Part of your research, you want to see if the industry that you have an interest in is thriving in that country or not. Because if it's not thriving, it may not be best to go there, or just visit, but not think about like moving there full time. Or you might have to go the entrepreneur route, where you could think about what's missing in this part of the world, and does my skill set match up with what I can bring there on my own, right? Think about that. Cost of living, like I mentioned about Ghana, cost of living is definitely worth noting, because if you are going there, you want to know, like, how much do I have saved up to actually go there on my own, right? Dependents, right? If you have kids and you're working for a company that's going to bring you over, make sure that they're going to, like, one thing I didn't mention is that most of the multinationals, when they're giving you packages to be an expat in a different country, most times when they're bringing you from the US to that country, they're also giving you accommodations for, well, I mean, well, yeah, definitely like housing that will fit your family, but they also cover schooling for your kids. So think about that also. The weather. Thankfully, I haven't met anyone who came to the UAE and said it was too hot, because most people did their research prior to. But yeah, no, it is worth noting, like, what is the weather like in that part of the world that you're going to be going to? Because you may love the winter. I, for one, never enjoyed the winter. New York, born and raised, always hated the winter. I hate wearing layers. Like, no, 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 no. I would actually take a summer in the UAE over a winter in New York City any day of the week. The living culture, like what is the culture like in that country? Are you okay with a slow pace of life? Like, for instance, yesterday my flight landed in Jamaica at 7:30. Got through the airport quickly because learned that we were the last flight that came in. Got to the rental car place, got the car, and I was like, oh, next up, I'm gonna get a SIM card. I do this every place that I go in the airport, get a SIM card. I have an unlocked phone. She's like, oh no, they've gone home for the day. I'm like, gone home for the day? It's 7:30. What, like, what do you mean? It's like, what? And she's like, yeah, no, you guys were the last flight in. So they were like, nah, that's it. And they just went home. And I was like, okay, okay, island life. I'm in the island. Just, it's cool. If you're okay with like an island culture, or on the other extreme, Japanese culture, you won't see this so much like the JET program in like education, but like Japanese work culture is notoriously known for being just, I mean, if it's a 40-hour work week in the States, it's like a 70-hour work week in Japan. So like, know that culture. And that goes more so into working culture than living culture, right? Living culture also in the UAE, Ramadan. For the entirety of Ramadan, the work is a lot more relaxed and laid back and lesser. I think for the entirety of Ramadan, if you work an 8-hour day, you now work a 6-hour day. Yeah, for those 30 days. I love it. So yeah, things to consider, right? Things that you won't know unless you do your research, right? So look into that. What is the best path to get there? So this photo here is from the Algarve region in Portugal, which is one of my most recent trips with a fellow Cheney grad who I always go on trips with at least once a year. So yes, what is the best path to get there? So like I was saying earlier, the foreign service. So this is like one of those, I also think, best kept secrets that I think we start knowing more about, especially since there are programs to get more Black folks into the foreign service. More so if you're currently in undergrad though, right? So if you're in undergrad, I want to say, I actually have it in the handout. It's called the Ralph Bunche program. And there's other programs with it too. But to my knowledge, the friends that I know that have done the Ralph Bunche program, they was able to do a internship in DC. I want to say it was affiliated with Howard. You also have a language component to it, and the language component has you doing a summer or a semester at Middlebury College, where they have a language intensive program where you literally cannot speak English. Like, if you are enrolled in Cambodian, you are speaking Cambodian for the entire, I think, 3 or 4 week process. And then you are now in this program that kind of like fast tracks you to take this foreign service test. And when you take the foreign service test, you are now and then you pass it, you are now I think a diplomat, and you can work at like all of the foreign service, like all of the embassy locations. And this kind of goes back to my tip earlier about wanting to work at like the lesser known countries, because you kind of get like more points in your foreign service folder, I guess, if you go to the more or like the less popular places. So, and then I want to say, I'm not 100% sure about this one, but of course, you can like research that one. You might get paid more if you're going to like a Afghanistan versus going to Dubai, right? One of them has a inherent risk, and there is hazard pay. So think about that. Local hire. So local hire, what this means is that you're already in the country, right? Maybe your spouse is living in that country. Maybe I wouldn't say more so like you went there on like a tourist visa, but maybe you have family in that country, or you have a dual citizenship or multiple passports or whatever, you're already in that country and you get hired there, that's always fine too. But just know that your package, your salary package will almost always look different as a local hire versus them bringing you from the States to that company, to that country. As a local hire, you probably just get, your salary and that's it. But as an expat from the US or wherever to that other country, they'll give you the plus plus, meaning like the housing, all these other things there. Like I said, multinational organization, I can definitely speak to, at least for the UAE, that is the route to go because you have more defined HR practices. And there's just like less possibility for things going wrong. That is a reality to anyone who has lived abroad. Things will go wrong. There's like, don't get it twisted, but you want the things to go wrong either to be minimal or have a support system around you, which more often than not will be your employer as an expat, to make sure that whatever does go wrong can be easily fixed. So yeah, I personally advocate for the multinationals first before anywhere else, especially if you're in a country that's more of a developing country. Study abroad programs, like this is the best way. So if you're currently in undergrad, do not shy away from studying abroad programs. I'll tell you a quick story. I had the opportunity to do semester at sea when I was at Cheney. And I think, yeah, I got into it. I had the GPA. It was like good to go. The reason why I didn't go was because I would have spent an extra semester at Cheney, because I would do a semester at sea. And I think I would have missed out on some required courses to graduate on time. And I said, no. I mean, everything worked out well for me now, but if you have a similar opportunity, trust me, go for it. Do the semester at sea. If it pushes your time in school over by one semester, and it doesn't impact the cost, because I understand school is not cheap, do it. 100% do it. So look at the studying abroad programs, look at the summer internships in other countries. Do it. Just go and do it. Trust me. Digital nomad. This means that your income is not tied down to you being in a physical location, and you can go work in, like, there's actual digital nomad visas now where, like, so typically you go to a country, they give you, well, as an American citizen, most times they give you like 30 days or 10 days or whatever in their country. As a digital nomad, there's countries now that have 1 year and even 2 year visas so that you can be in their country for up to 1 or 2 years as a digital nomad. You just have to like show proof of income and things like that. Entrepreneurship. If you're making money for yourself, which also means making money for that country, they're gonna want to have you there. So that's definitely a route to get you there too. And government sponsored programs. This is Peace Corps. This is Fulbright. This is what it's worth, the military. Like, there are means that can get you abroad. And those are just a bit of the government sponsored programs that I know of. All right, let me check into the chat real quick. Working remotely for a US company and the rules around that. Oh, yes. So with the onset of remote work, have you heard of anyone working remotely for a US company and the rules around that? How do you bring up such a conversation with a hiring manager? Yes, and that is a very precarious situation. I would definitely say that they're beginning to crack down on that a lot more now versus during the pandemic. In the pandemic, it was like, listen, like, no one's in the office, have at it, be wherever you are. Some people, depending on the, I guess the complexity or like security needs of their job, they had like VPNs set up and everything like that to kind of like mask their location. But yeah, if you're applying for the job and it says, remote, then you're good to go. But if it says remote in the US, you're going to probably have to stay in the US. You may see some flex where it's a remote job and offers you unlimited PTO. Maybe then, because you can just be in a different country, checking in at work, like that can happen. But to fully live full time in a different country, working for a US company, when you're a remote worker, but in their eyes in the US, honestly, that's going to be difficult. Everything that I've seen lately has gone towards the shift of like a crackdown on that, and they're looking for all their remote workers to be in the US. On the company side, there's tax implications, there's security implications, both physical and cybersecurity. So yeah, it's I personally wouldn't go that route unless you get the okay ahead of time. Okay, so continuing on like the best paths to get there. So foreign service, I broke this down already. You're a career government employee. You're often rotating. Then they pay for everything. They pay for your housing. They pay for your relocation. They pay for all of that stuff. They pay for your kids' schooling. To all my educators, you can literally look at any country in the world, and there is a American school there. And the American school is designed for embassy employees, expats, as well as some of those governments, like they're higher politicians want to send their kids to a American school, and they want to like kind of like track them into American colleges from an early age. So they have like American schools that are K through 12. So yeah, foreign service, that's definitely one of them. Local hire, I broke that one down already. Government programs, yes. So one of them that I didn't touch on is contractor. So quick story for this one. When I was at Cheney, a lot of my friends, they actually got jobs working for the US Navy, not like being enlisted, but like working in I think there's like a massive logistics center in Philadelphia for the US Navy. And one of my friends was able to transition that into a role in Afghanistan, where he was living in the barracks, but he's still an employee. He's not in the military. He's not fighting. He's not doing anything, crazy over there. But he literally, I think, doubled or tripled his salary by going to Afghanistan because of hazard pay. And it was not pretty though. He had to live in the barracks. You only get 1 month off, but you do get 1 month off. And everything is on base, so you have zero expenses. So like I said, consider some of these options. So other programs, like what was mentioned earlier, the JET program, Teachaway. So Teachaway, if you're a teacher, I think teachaway.com or teachaway.org is where you'll find that. It's literally teaching opportunities all over the world. Birthright programs. This is one that I found when I was in undergrad that I didn't do because I got an internship elsewhere. But if you are Jamaican, there's a actual Jamaican birthright program where you can do a summer internship in Jamaica if your parents are, I think it's, parents or grandparents are Jamaican. And when I was looking, the internship would have been with Grace Kennedy, which is known as like one of the largest, if not the biggest foodstuffs companies. So like they make like hot sauce and seasonings and all kind of stuff. That would have been my internship that summer. And then that could have led to a full-time job with Grace Kennedy. And who knows, I could have been, the head of business development or whatever for Grace Kennedy now, living in Jamaica, which would have been great. So yeah, look into that. Like if you're a first or second generation American, look into the birthright of, or like just like Google your parents or grandparents' country and then type in birthright program and see what comes up. I know definitely for Jewish Americans, like they have a whole thing. So yeah, look into that. And like I said, multinational employer. But what I mean by this is if you work for a multinational in the US, like I said, my friend who works for Agoda, I have another friend who works for Exxon, other friend working for Lego, and they were able to move to, other countries, Nigeria, Thailand, Denmark, in those same companies, right? I did it with NYU. I worked at NYU, New York. Granted, I still had to like apply for a whole different job because it is a whole different university and everything like that, but it still made it a little bit more easier because I had familiarity with NYU. So that is another path to get there. So the realities, which someone did touch on in the chat box already. There are some cons to a global career, right? So being strategic is important, right? You will find that there is a bit of a arc And then in some careers, it does begin to go down of like the competitiveness and the relevance and all that stuff, right? Because if you've been abroad for like, I don't know, 15, 20 years, now coming back to the States, they might be like, oh, but they're disconnected, right? That might be a very true reality. Homesickness. This is a true thing. I didn't get it personally. I think probably because of the adventure that I wanted to go on, as well as the UAE. Like whenever I'm, missing home, I can go to the Cheesecake Factory or PF Chang's or Texas Roadhouse or small things like that. So I don't really miss it that much. But homesickness is real. Honestly, your experience may vary. My experience in the UAE is very different from my wife's experience in the UAE because in her industry, it's a little bit more unregulated compared to what I'm going through at NYU. Like NYU, like what you're getting up front. It's trusted. It's like you kind of just, it. Versus in her field, she is a BCBA. So she works with children with autism, and it's more so working like smaller companies. So yeah, it's just your experience may very well vary based upon your employer. Distance from your family, you have to be okay with that, right? Unfortunately, you may end up missing Thanksgivings. You might end up missing some Christmas. You will probably end up missing births. You'll probably end up getting, unfortunately, like the 3 a.m. phone calls about deaths. It's like, so definitely think about this also in your global career, because that is a true reality of it. So how do I do it? Right? So we talk about all of the things, the pros, the cons, the majors, the careers, the routes, all that stuff, right? How do I do it? Literally, I have 4 bullets on this because I don't want to overcomplicate it. The first one is the most important one: research, research, and research. So what this looks like is, for instance, whenever I go on vacation, right, I book my ticket and everything. But then, or even prior to booking my ticket, I watch at least, and this is just me, I'm not recommending everyone does this, but it is a good idea. I watch at least 3 hours worth of YouTube vlogs on the location, right? So I literally so like, for instance, I knew that I was gonna only spend like a day in Frankfurt, but I was like, let me just see, right? So I typed in Frankfurt vlog, so VLOG on YouTube, watched a couple hours worth of that, and I was like, okay, there's not really much to do in Frankfurt. I did the same thing actually in Mallorca, which is the previous picture where this is from, and found a ton of things that, it would have taken me forever to like read through websites and all that stuff to like find that, right? Do the same thing with your global career search, right? Research, research, research. Literally, you can go to YouTube. I know tons of people right now who are looking at retiring in Portugal. And you can definitely find like people who are speaking on what it's like to live as an expat in Portugal. Definitely find it in Ghana. Definitely find it in Rwanda. Of course, the UAE. So literally just like find out or just go to YouTube, type in expat and the country, and you'll find people who talk about their experience being abroad, living there as an expat. And you'll definitely find the pros and the cons. Of course, watch more than one person because someone's con might not be the same as your con as well. Alumni, talk to alumni, whether you're in school or you are also a alum, talk to your alumni who are in these countries. It works leaps and bounds, right? You'll get information and like jewels that you'll never see elsewhere. How do you find them? LinkedIn. Like I cannot speak enough on like the importance of LinkedIn. So that goes to my next one, networking, right? COVID, if there's one thing COVID showed us is that the internet literally can like flatten borders and make sure that like that business keeps on going even without the physical aspect. So with that being said, networking without having to be in an actual physical country is very much possible via LinkedIn. You can literally go on LinkedIn and create a job search based upon whatever country that you want to go to. And LinkedIn will send you job postings daily on whatever your area is, your area of interest, and in that country, right? You can do that. You can also type in a company name, and then in the company name, you can type in the country, and you can look at all the people who work for that company in that country, and you can see which ones you have any similarities with. And then the folks you have a similarity with, you can then message them. I'm going to be honest with you. For me, I look for Black folks, right? I want to know what it's like being Black in name X, right? Because I know that experience varies, right? Some countries are cool, some countries are anti, and some countries are like, listen, man, I'm just here to get my work done. I don't care what color you are, right? I want to know what that's like, right? So when I'm doing my research on possible like my next location of where I would want to live at, I'm gonna look up and find me some Black folks and say, hey, I'm considering some jobs out in this location. How is it? But also, like, to be honest with you, how is it being Black in this country? Because that's important to me, right? But I know someone mentioned safety, right? Safety as a woman. This is the perfect time to have that informational interview and say, hey, how is it, how is the salary, how is the work life, but also how is it like being a woman in this country? And if you're talking to a Black woman, how's it like being a Black woman in this country? I know it's especially important to know what's the hair care like, right? Like, are there beauty salons there? Is there a population there that that can work with my hair type, or not? One thing I found is that we actually just talking about this yesterday, my wife and I, is that literally every country that we've gone to, we've definitely found, but not every country, but like most of them, we found Nigerians and Ethiopians, right? So my barber in Abu Dhabi, he's from Ghana. The people who own the hair salon that my wife goes to, they're from Ethiopia. So yeah, like places that you would never think of. You're in the Middle East, but you can definitely get your hair braided. You can definitely get, a tight shape up. So you can get a dope fade. My boy, he's in India. There's a large Nigerian population in India. Honestly, who knew? I did not know that. So all these small things you can find out through having informational interviews. And I cannot speak enough about the power of LinkedIn. I literally can do a whole PowerPoint and a whole presentation on LinkedIn itself. So I won't dive too much into that. But yeah, LinkedIn can help you out a whole lot. And then visit if you can. So my brief story for this one is, I don't know if everyone knows about this one, but in 2015, there was a flight glitch on Christmas Day where Etihad, which is the national carrier of the UAE, had a glitch fare, which was, I think it was $187 nonstop round trip flight from JFK to Abu Dhabi. I saw that and I was like, wait, what? I called 15 of my friends and I was like, yo, there's a flight glitch. Give me your credit card number. I'm booking your ticket. And we all flew out to the UAE for my birthday, which is in August in 2015. Wasn't the greatest idea because I didn't do my research. August was 100 degrees at night and 120 something, 125 or so in the daytime. So we pretty much baked. But I mean, for $187, we're like, listen, we're gonna just enjoy it. And when I was out there, prior to me going, I mentioned this to a friend who knew that I was actually looking for like, a change of scenery. And she's like, oh, my friend lives in Dubai and he runs his own company out there. Y'all should meet up. And I was like, what? There's a brother man owning his own company in Dubai? Oh, yes, we are definitely catching up. So I met up with him over lunch while I had my 15 friends in the UAE. And we had a great conversation. And I'm gonna be honest with you, like part of it, I think like halfway through it, I was like, brother, you gotta tell me, what is it like being a Black man in the UAE? And he broke it down to me. And what he said to me is no lie. He was like, listen, as long as you respect the culture, you'll be all right. But then also understand that there will be times where you walk into a store and they're kind of sussing you out, right? And they may give someone else service, like a British person service first, and then they hear you speak, and they're like, "Oh, American! Oh, yes, please, please," right? So that does happen, but that's like the most that you'll have to deal with, right? You won't have to deal with violent cops. You won't have to deal with the lack of safety. You won't have to deal with like most of those things that you have in the US. You will not have to deal with that in the UAE. And in my 5.5 years of living there, I can attest to that, right? But it was having that conversation when I was there on vacation is what really locked it in for me. When I was like, oh, yes, I'm making this happen. And then I did the networking, both in person and virtually. And I was able to, land an opportunity to come to the UAE. So I say all that to say that in this grand presentation, it all boils down to four bullets of how do you do it. There is no, Garvin method, no, 15-step process. It's literally just this, but I cannot push enough the research part. And then also, last tip that I'll give is LinkedIn. You don't need to have the LinkedIn Premium. Like it's nice, but as a job seeker and a job searcher, nah, I wouldn't. I personally don't recommend paying the extra money for LinkedIn Premium. Yeah. So with that being said, I'm now going to open up to questions. You can definitely feel free to go into the chat box. I'll also check the Q&A section to see if there's anything else that I missed here. And yeah, so I definitely talked about the ageism, where some companies have that. And also, yeah, so speaking to that piece, you may also find, I'm not sure whether I would call it ageism too, but for instance, right, my friend who's in India, they won't allow them to drive, right? So they gave them a special, well, not special, but like part of their compensation includes a driver, right? And you might think like what? That's actually kind of like strange. Like why are you like protecting them, right? Part of it is because if anything happens to you in these countries when you're there for a short period of time, they're on the hook to pay for everything, which can get very expensive, and it's part of the actual home company's life insurance, right? So now factoring in some of that. I'm definitely not saying that it's okay, but some companies won't send you abroad if you're a certain age because of the insurance. So think about that also when you're working with like some multinationals as well. Yes, WITS. Actually, I will do let me do a quick search. Give me 1 second. Going to Google, WITS. South Africa. Yes. So it is, let me do another screen share back on this. Oops, trying to share my screen again. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so it's WITS University of Witwatersrand, I want to say it is. So this is just one of those schools, but there's, I mean, literally, if you were to just type in like X research and the country, you'll find it. But yeah, Witwatersrand. That's the school that I was talking about. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So that's one of the schools that I know of that has lots of like research opportunities. But I mean, trust me, there's a whole lot more of them. Another school to look into if you are on the business side or if you had like experience. So like if you had a wonderful career and now you want to go abroad, there is African Leadership University. They have a entrepreneur in residence program where I don't know the compensation part of it, but I do know that they'll bring you out there for I think up to 1 semester to live there. And their campuses are in Mauritius and Rwanda. And yes, there is also a university in Ghana. I forget the name of it too, unfortunately. But there is a university in Ghana that's also really popular. Besides University of Ghana. I'm drawing a blank on it right now. But yeah, so like I said, universities are a well, yes, Asheshi, yes. They are a well of opportunities, especially in a research area, especially if you have any experience in academia, but it is a great means to get abroad. All right, looking at the questions again. Biggest takeaways from living and working abroad. Um, yes, I gotta be honest with you. It has definitely made me not want to return to the US. I look at some of the OG expats and who's been out there for like, or abroad for like 20, 30 years. They move with like a different air of just like relaxation. I can say like 6 months into living in the UAE, like all the tension in my shoulders were gone. And yeah, it's yeah. One of the main reasons why we might go back eventually is because of family. Like I can't say because of anything else. We would love to be expats in one or two more countries before we go back to the States, if we go back, but family may quicken that a little bit more. So yeah, that's one of the things that will probably bring most people back to the States is family. And yeah, like I said, my personal biggest takeaway for me was a financial independence. Like I was able to do things like pay off student loans and fly mom out for her birthday and things like that that I wouldn't be doing in my 30s. No, that would be more like a 40s or 50s kind of a thing. So yeah, I'm very big on financial freedom and being able to just move with ease. I love that for me. Um, that's definitely one of my biggest takeaways for sure. Okay, so the countries that I mentioned earlier, the maximum time of visa without the digital nomad element. So this part, it depends on. So if you're a U.S. citizen, you can definitely find this part easily on the I want to say the US Embassy website, or just go to Google and type in like, US citizen visa country, right? And you'll find like the full breakdowns. Um, as a US citizen, a lot of countries offer us visa-free travel. But for instance, if you're going to India, you have to get a visa earlier, like before you get to the country. And I think for India, I think this might be like 10 or 30 days, one of them. But yeah, it really varies by country. I don't know that one by heart, unfortunately. I can do a whole other presentation on this, like passport privilege. I'll just touch on this really quick because I know we're almost out of time. Actually, we probably are near it. I did not realize that we have passport privilege until I moved abroad. So what does passport privilege mean? This means that the UAE likes to announce, well, not likes to, like just as like a Muslim country, they announce holidays due to the viewing of the moon, right? So with that being said, you won't know if that holiday is happening until 2 days prior. So as an American citizen, I can say, oh snap, I got like a 5-day vacation now. I'm gonna get on the airplane and go to Spain. Boom, great. Yay, I'm going to Spain. My coworkers and colleagues who are from Sudan, the Philippines, Egypt, Morocco, like Kenya, they can't do that. They're like, oh, great, bye, enjoy. Reason being is because they have to go through a whole visa process. They have to go to an office and submit documents and bank forms and wait sometimes, weeks or months, or in the case of Europe right now, like a whole year just to get a visa to go there. So yeah, more often than not, as an American citizen, you're okay. But you'll just know that you're going to be limited to maybe like 30 days or so. But yeah, that's the research that you have to do beforehand most times. The most egregious experience, like I said, you walk into some stores, they think of you, they see your skin color first, and then they're like, okay, that's just a whatever, and then they hear you speak and like, oh, American, oh, hi, how can I help you, what do you want, da, 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 da. Yeah, so that's definitely one of them for sure. um Oh, that's a good one. Okay, this is good. The last question. So would you recommend going for a degree in your chosen foreign country? um so yes, I would, but well, okay, let me bring it back. I think studying abroad in that country would definitely benefit. Going for a whole degree in that country, though, if you're considering masters, I think yeah, like a great option. But for a bachelor's, that could be a little bit risky because it might put you at a disadvantage for opportunities at home, and you always want to make sure that home is good because like that's where you got to go back to regardless, right? Yeah, so undergrad, I'm not fully sure. But masters, yes, 100% yes, yes, and yes. And in the handout that you'll be getting separately, I actually have some programs in there, like the Schwartzman Scholars, which is a fully funded master's degree at like the Harvard of China, in China, right? I think there's like a couple more programs. Of course, the Rhodes Scholar, which would have you go to Oxford for whatever degree also. And I think there's Princeton in Africa, which is not necessarily a degree, but yeah, so definitely, yeah. Post undergrad, 100%. For undergrad, honestly, I don't have that much experience there, so I can't give that advice. Right, check in here. All right, and then PhD, yeah, yes. Also, PhD is worth doing abroad too. I mean, well, going to PhDs most times are fully funded and paid for because you're getting your money back by, or they're getting their money back by having you teach. But yeah, the global experience, because most classrooms, especially in the US, have more than just, you know, the typical American, right? Which unfortunately to them. And then I mean, universities were founded for white males, right? Universities nowadays are far beyond that. So if you have experience teaching in a whole different country, and now you're going to bring that skill set into the classroom, especially if you're in a more metropolitan area, yeah, you will be highly competitive. Cool. All right. So thank you all for listening to me. I hope you found a lot of this information useful. You can find me professionally on LinkedIn, Garvin Reid. You can follow my travels on Instagram. My wife and I have a couples page. It's called Black Lovers Abroad. We also have a blog called blackloversabroad.com. I recently wrote about my time in Portugal, which included meeting a lot of like Black expats. Yeah, and I just, you know, if you all need any help, definitely feel free to, you know, drop me a message on LinkedIn. Might take me a while to get back to you, but I will definitely get back to you. And yeah, I wish you all the best in your endeavors and your future hopeful global careers. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully catching up with y'all in a different country. All right, y'all. Thank you very much.